Board is in session. We've got a long meeting today. First is our public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment from the public that wants to comment? Okay, come on down if you don't mind.
So if I can hold it together, I'm here to speak on why I think the suspension bridge on the Greenway near Umstead should be named for Todd Delk. He was a dear friend. He helped build the community of Raleigh that I know and that I love. He nominated me to be a SparkCon bobblehead when we were doing SparkCon, and had to set me correct when somebody asked me a question. I was like, I don't know. And he's like, no, you're a bobblehead. You say yes. How can we make it happen? And so built community with him at SparkCon, built community with him at the Kirby Derby there at Park Terrace. I remember setting up a finish line or two for the Soapbox Derby there and building Soapbox Derby cars with him. A great and dear friend. Rode my bike here tonight just to help remember him, because I know he loved his bike, he loved the Greenways, and he loved sharing that passion with all of us. And I think it would be a fitting memorial to name the bridge after Todd Delk, my dear friend and community builder here in Raleigh. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, do you want me to call him back? Oh, sir, sorry, could you come back and repeat your name, just so we can get it for the minutes?
Maybe I didn't get it. My name is Truett Thompson.
Okay, thank you, Truett.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to offer public comment in support of the Crabtree Creek West Greenway Suspension Bridge, naming for Todd B. Delk. My name is Erin Delk. I'm Todd's sister-in-law. On behalf of his brother Clay, who could not be here tonight, his parents and his family, I do want to offer a heartfelt appreciation to Eric Lamb and Lisa Schiffbauer for moving forward and spearheading this effort. It is truly a very kind and loving and considerate thing to do. Todd Delk came to NC State in the late 90s, and he immediately made Raleigh his home. He loved the city, and it didn't matter, you know, whenever we would see each other, what we had just done. If we had just been on a hike, I could tell you, he would tell you Raleigh had a trail. If we had just been to a festival, Raleigh had a festival. Hopscotch, his beloved IBMA. I will admit here in this chamber, which feels a little bold, that I truly used to refer to Todd as the mayor of Raleigh because he talked so much about it throughout our relationship. He also, though, participated in his community. He volunteered. He was engaged in the Young Professionals at the North Carolina Museum of Art and also in the Visual Arts Exchange downtown. He worked as an intern with NCDOT for city government and in the private sector. And he really was a heck of an engineer, right? Always solving a problem, always telling you how he solved a problem and how he was right about it. But really I would say, the progress and the progress of his career, he really evolved into the bike and pedestrian space. So Todd loved to bike. He rode his bike on the weekends. He rode his bike to work. He rode his bike to our house. And 5 years ago, when Todd died, and we had a memorial service at the North Carolina Museum of Art for Todd, his community and friends met at Bolted Bread, specifically so that they could ride the Greenway to NCMA, specifically so they could ride on the bike lines and be on Hillsborough Street together. I think not just to honor him, but to connect with him. And so when the Crabtree Creek Greenway extension opened, our family, right, got on our bikes, like Uncle Todd would have encouraged us to do. And when we turned the corner on that suspension bridge, I can say, wow, it is just so impressive. And it is obviously a feat of engineering, much more intelligent than I could speak to, but it truly is creative, and it just seems to enhance the space around it. And I think for our family, no matter what happens moving forward, we will always connect, I think, with him there from now on. So with that, on behalf of the Delk family, we encourage you to move forward with a favorable vote in this naming proposal. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Delk. Is there any other public comment? Okay, I think that wraps up our public comment section. Next on our agenda is the Raleigh Youth Council. I think we've got both of the reps here tonight.
Good afternoon. My name is Finch Chaldone, and I'm the chair of the Raleigh Youth Council. This past Monday, we had College Night Part 2. We hosted a panel of RYC alumni that are currently in college. We had London, who is a first year at Winston-Salem State, Paris, who is a first year at NC State, Cordelia, who is a second year at NC State, and Sam, who's a fourth year at UNC Chapel Hill. So probably some familiar names there. We got to ask them questions and hear about their experiences at their respective universities. Hopefully, our members and others will take advantage of free college application week from October 21st to the 27th. On Saturday, October 12th, the Executive Board of the Raleigh Youth Council attended the 2024 Leadership Day Conference. 6 other youth councils were in attendance. It was an opportunity for us to learn how other counselors are leading in their communities and to also strengthen our own leadership skills. Our next meeting will be on October 28th, and we'll be carving pumpkins and reviewing some grant applications in preparation for the upcoming mini-grant conference.
Good afternoon. I'm Miles Frazier. I'm the vice chair of the Raleigh Youth Council. Our annual specialized recreation Halloween dance for teens and adults with special needs will be on this Saturday, October 19th at J.C. Park. If you know any teens interested in volunteering, please have them sign up on the Raleigh Volunteer Services website. If you know any participants who would like to attend the dance, it will be from 7 to 9 p.m. and the cost is $5. In reference to your request last time, RYC members represent the schools Enloe, Rollsville, Leesville, Exploration Christian Academy, South Garner, Ravenscroft, Athens Drive, Green Level, Broughton, Crossroads Flex, Wakefield, Heritage, Durham Academy, and Homeschool. In November, we will have boxes for new toy donations to support our annual Toys for Teens event. Boxes will be located at Greystone, Chavis Park, Roberts Park. We are also partnering with young youth programs to provide boxes at Barwell Road Community Center, Abbott's Creek Community Center, Lake Lynn, and Briar Creek. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for the Raleigh Youth Council members? No? Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we've got a few presentations from staff. The first one is actually going to be the Crabtree Creek Suspension Bridge naming, and I believe, is Lisa here to present that, or is
really
just our discussion?
Yes, absolutely. So it's really in your hands.
Okay. And is that just going to take a motion from us to approve the naming? Oh, next month. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any comments about the naming or any discussion points? Anything that we want to say? Beverly?
I'd like to thank the folks who spoke this evening, and our process is a lengthy one, and for that, while it has value in the opportunity for us to get input before we make a recommendation to City Council, I'm sure from your perspective it feels a little tedious, and so I apologize, but there are reasons for it. But so thank you for taking the time a month ago to come and coming again this evening. I don't think there's any debate on this board about the value of what you've recommended and what staff's recommended.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think there's strong support for the renaming. Okay, we have a new 4.2. That is the, I've forgotten what we just talked about that we named.
Reflecting Raleigh, the next comprehensive plan.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So do we have a speaker for the comprehensive plan? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, committee members. I thank you for the opportunity for being able to come down and speak to all of you this evening. My name is Matt Bailey. I am the planning manager with long-range planning and, well, comprehensive planning and long-range development in the Department of, development, of course. So I'm here to present to you the Reflecting Raleigh, Raleigh's next comprehensive plan. And I hope you're going to be able to leave this presentation with the answers to the following questions that you see here. What is a comprehensive plan? Why do we have one? What is the 2030 plan? What changes since it was adopted and updated? What will the new plan look like? What's the process for developing the new plan, and how can you get involved in the process? So North Carolina state law requires that all municipalities have a comprehensive plan in order to maintain the authority to enforce local zoning and development regulations. The comprehensive plan serves as the foundation for Raleigh's zoning code and our development regulations, which are included in the UDO. It is also the long-range term vision for the built environment and describes how growth and change should be managed to support the vision for how the community wants Raleigh to look and feel in the future. Raleigh's 2030 plan was originally adopted back in 2009 and updated between 2014 and 2019. The plan is accessible online and in a flip book format and included in a breadth of topics, policies, and actions. So what's changed? Raleigh's population has grown at a steady pace in the last decade, averaging a 1.2% increase annually. For context, that means the population in 2023 is at 482,295. If that 1.2 rate continues, the population will reach 665,600 by the year 2050. As the population has increased, so has the land consumption. More than 4,000 acres have been brought into city limits since 2019, and more than 5,700 acres have been rezoned. Most of these requests have been increased height and/or decreased densities. Or I'm sorry, increased density, not decrease. Changes since 2009, the policy and regulatory context in Raleigh has also changed significantly in the last decade. The General Assembly now requires all annexations to be voluntary and driven by the property owner's request. This is important because it impacts how the city is able to provide service to new areas as we continue to grow and expand. Raleigh now also has a suite of other robust plans which will lay out goals and priorities for the city, which include the citywide strategic plan, the community climate action plan, and the department business plans. There are also numerous technical documents that play a significant role in development and service provision in Raleigh. These also include the Stormwater Design Manual and the Public Utilities Handbook. Additionally, as with many cities across the country, planning practices and life in cities has evolved in the last 10 years. We see an increased emphasis on multimodal transportation, housing diversity, housing affordability, racial equity, and sustainability. We see an increased emphasis, how people move around and where they go has also shifted, with more people working from home and commuting at different times of the day. With all the changes, there is a need to update the comprehensive plan to reflect how Raleigh has grown, how Raleigh is expected to grow, and how our values and priorities may have changed. We anticipate this planning process and the next plan itself to address the following themes. The first theme is equity, specifically by exploring how we can make housing and business opportunities accessible to everyone in the city of Raleigh. Sustainability, both in terms of financial sustainability and managing how we pay for and deliver services to growing population, and in terms of environmental sustainability and how our continued growth and development patterns impact environmental resources and including global climate change. And lastly, the alignment, thinking about how the next comprehensive plan will interface with the CIP, which is the Capital Improvements Plan, their strategic plan, and the other plans and guides referenced earlier. This is a very large citywide project that will unfold over the next 2.5 years. The first phase will focus on public engagement with a series of topics-based events through the first half of 2025. Subsequent phases will focus on plan development, plan drafting, plan review, and plan adoption. I also want to share some high-level details about each of these phases and specifically how you can participate through the process. The first phase of public engagement will be anchored around a series of 6 community conversations. The topics were selected based on issues that staff hear about most often in the context of growth and development. They include affordable housing, transportation and mobility, stormwater, trees, sustainable infrastructure and services, and lastly, neighborhood change. Each community conversation will consist of a keynote speaker, a state of the city presentation, online and in-person survey opportunities, facilitated discussions, and one-on-one Ask a Planner events. The first of these events was an Affordable Housing Summit that was hosted back in August. A recording of the event is available on the city's YouTube channel, and you can respond to our community housing priority surveys through the end of this month, the month of October. Our next set of events will focus on stormwater that will take place on December 4th and on December 9th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Martin Street Baptist Church. Registration will open on November 1st. So during phase 2, plan development will be a coordinated effort with several groups, technical working groups, and a citizen assembly. Each technical working group will include city staff, local practitioners, and representatives from each of the city's boards and commissions. The citizen assembly will be a 40 to 50 person team comprised of representatives, samples of the Raleigh population. Participants will opt in the selection pool and then be randomly selected. Everyone who participates in either of these groups and who is not city staff will be paid an hourly rate for their expertise. We will be reaching out to your staff liaison with more information about joining a technical committee as we approach that particular phase. Throughout the remaining phases, plan drafting, plan review, and plan adoption, there will be many ways to stay informed and provide meaningful input to shape the plan. One of our goals for this process is to reach individuals who have been underserved or underrepresented in the planning process and projects in the past in the city of Raleigh. One of the ways we plan to expand our reach is through citizen assembly. We also plan to work with local artists to help us design and facilitate different engagement approaches that are more interactive and inclusive and help us meet and talk to people we haven't been able to reach to in the past. We will also host pop-up events, present to community groups, continue to publish online surveys, and host in-person Ask a Planner events. So for more information, including details on upcoming events, online surveys, and subscribe for monthly emails, updates by visiting our project website, go to raleighNC.gov, and search Raleigh's Next Comprehensive Plan. Any questions?
Thanks, Matt. Are there any questions for Matt? Ian?
Yeah, on the stormwater meeting, is it the same session both days, or is it a 2-day session with different things happening?
From what I understand, it's a 2-day session with different things happening.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Matt.
All right, thank you. If you guys have any other additional questions later on, you can reach out to Sarah, Sean Hennessy, or reflecting@raleighNC.gov. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, next we have a presentation by Michael DeGrossa on the This Is What We Do, Parks and Natural Resources Grounds Program.
Hello, everyone, and good evening to our chair, members of the board. I am Charles Craig, one of our assistant directors for Raleigh Parks. I am so pleased to introduce to many of you Michael DeGrossa. He is one of our ground superintendents within our division of Parks and Natural Resources. And also coming back is Neil Weisenbaker, our city horticulturalist, which many of you are familiar with. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Michael DeGrossa as he take a deeper dive into his world and what we do in this presentation. Thanks.
Good evening, members. I'm Michael DeGrossa. I'm the superintendent of grounds. With me, we have Neil Weisenbaker, who's our city horticulturist. First, I'm going to give a program overview of the grounds work group within Parks and Natural Resources. We oversee the ground maintenance for over 220 parks, manage the city cemetery, and citywide horticulture program. Grounds, for me, and what we do within grounds is the first impression for the community when they visit a park. My previous colleague, Ivan Dickey, always told me, he said, Mike, we do more than cut grass, because I used to give him a hard time telling him, I manage construction projects and I take care of playgrounds. And I'm like, Ivan, do you do anything more than cut grass? I'm going to go over grounds as a whole. First, we're going to go over the organizational structure. We're going to go over the district crews, cemetery, horticulture, and then my favorite is our volunteer impact. So the ground structure, we have myself as the superintendent of grounds. I get to oversee all the maintenance across the parks. I get to sit on planning meetings. I get to engage with community members and help organize volunteer events. Under me, we have 2 special parks managers. Each one has 3 district crews, and Ryan Lurch has the luxury of also overseeing our cemetery program. They manage daily operational, seasonal schedules, program budget, goals, and initiatives, many that are recommended by this board themselves, and we align with operational objectives. Next, underneath grounds, we have the city horticulturist, Neil Weisenbaker. He provides guidance, direction, and plan reviews. He also advises on green stormwater infrastructure, manages our pesticide and herbicide use. He is also engaged in a lot of public outreach, staff development and training, which is huge. Our staff always continue to educate themselves and keep up with industry standard to make sure we can provide the best for the community. And then also Neil gets to manage the greenhouse, which is a huge undertaking in itself. It's a great cost-saving method for the city and allows us to propagate within the city of Raleigh and not have to outsource to other greenhouses. Under that, we have our district crew supervisors, who are the backbone to the grounds work group. They interact with the community. Many of them have direct lines to citizens to manage situations that happen in the park, get a real live perspective, and gauge what's happening within the park system. That way they can elevate it to myself, and we can make appropriate actions or changes as necessary. The district crew supervisors oversee all daily field work. They manage their individual budget. Each program has their own budget. They present a spending plan that reflects what the community is trending towards or what they are requesting within their park system. And they get the lucky job of organizing volunteer events, which I'm very proud of, which we'll get to later, but our big heavy lift is our volunteer events. And we can't do all this without our field staff. We have roughly 48 field staff that directly implement our horticulture work. They run our equipment. They handle all of our mowing and general park maintenance and improvements. So I'm going to go over our district crews real quick. We have 6 district crews that encompass 56 staff. Each district crew averages 36 parks. So think of a district crew of only 7 staff members who have to manage 36 parks with a very limited budget, and they have time to conduct volunteer work. So this picture right here is Ryan Roberts. He handles Moore Square. This was in March of this year. We applied new Bermuda grass to Moore Square. We all know it's heavily programmed, and our staff is the one that keeps it looking as good as it does. Next is the volunteer work. So I'm going to jump ahead of myself and kind of pat my back, but our grounds group did 271 volunteer projects last year. That's organized by grounds, implemented by grounds, and conducted by us. So you think almost every single day, our staff are maintaining the parks and conducting volunteer events. Last but not least, we put together a natural resources task force this year. We all know natural resources standing up a GSI team, and grounds stood up a natural resources team to help mold what that team is going to be in the future. Our team conducts invasive species removal. We do field mapping for natural resource land management and controlled burns within the park system. So that team was strictly voluntary. They all stepped up and handled that internally. Finally, city cemetery. Our maintenance crew is responsible for grounds maintenance, perpetual care of Raleigh's city-owned cemeteries. They also handle interment, monument rebasing, and monument restoration. They're all trained and qualified on monument restoration, which is a huge undertaking. So that goes outside of the norms for your normal district crew. Second of all, we started wildflower programs within the cemetery. You can see along Prospect Avenue, we have a wildflower plot, and then along Fayetteville Street. Not only does it increase our wildflower habitat, but our citizens that live across the street greatly appreciate the nice views when everything is in full bloom. Next, I'm going to get into our horticultural program. I will say one of my objectives as the superintendent is to be more than just cutting grass. Our horticulture program has expanded dramatically from pollinators to wildflower plots to invasive species removal, and then also into green stormwater infrastructure. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce Neil Weisenbaker, who's going to talk about our horticulture program.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me today. I'm Neil Weisenbaker, city horticulturist, and I'm in the grounds maintenance division under Mike DeGrossa there. But with only 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees, we're a very small program, the horticulture program, but we have a really big impact across the city, and I would like to share that with you today. You can see this is a picture of our greenhouse. It's a 1.5 acre greenhouse and nursery facility, about 5,750 square feet under glass. And we grow plants. That's one of the big things that we do for the city. We grow 50,000 annual flowering plants every year. That's 2 batches of about 25,000 apiece. And that's plants like our pansies and snapdragons and things like that that we'll put out into the parks to help with seasonal color. We're able to do that for about $10,000 a year. If we were to buy those plants, it would cost us around $50,000 a year. So it's a significant savings to the city, enables us to do more with less. In addition to annual flowering plants, that's kind of how we got started, was those annual flowering plants, and we still do it, but we also grow native perennial plants as well. And those native perennials will grow about 10,000. We've grown in our greenhouse and planted in our parks this year. And the cost savings there is a lot better. We're actually able to produce that 10,000 plants for about $8,000. Versus if we were to purchase them from wholesale nurseries, not retail, it would cost us about $30,000 to $60,000. So we're able to do it at a very small fraction of the cost. This makes our city more beautiful through our parks and those plants in those parks. It also makes it greener and it makes it more biophilic. The second thing we do is, let me just make sure I get that click right. There we go. Is we do a lot of engagement type of work. So but we do it through plants, if you can believe that. So an example might be for a pollinator week, we'll grow about 700 to 1,000 plants that we will give away at our nature centers and talk about the cause of pollinators in our community and their decline. And it gives us a way to engage through plants. Another way we do that is through the Mordecai plant sale. We grow all the starts for that sale. This year we grew 2,500 vegetable starts for the Mordecai plant sale. We did that at a cost of about $2,000, and versus if we were to buy those plants, it would have cost us $12,000. So we were able to save $10,000 doing that, and then raise an additional $6,500 for historical resources. So it's a really great way of leveraging a small amount of money to have a large impact. Further, we, in the horticulture program, engage with staff development. So this is continuing education and keeping our staff at industry best practices. It's very important to stay on the edge of our field. Last year, we were able to extend continuing education to 60 staff members. And so we went to events like we did a tour of Hoffman Nursery in Bahama, and we did a tour of the Pollinator Paradise Garden in Chatham County, or we sent a team to Green and Growin in Greensboro to learn best practices landscape maintenance. And you can see more there down the list. But it's very well participated, and it makes our park staff the cutting edge staff that you demand. I also manage our pesticide management policy. I don't do this alone. I do this with a core team of people. It's an interdisciplinary team. And we write the rules for how pesticides are used in our park system. What goes along with that is also training, the qualified applicator status. We track all chemical use, and we inspect all of our facilities. So through that program, we have 52 licensed by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture public operators in Parks and Recreation and Cultural Resources. So we make sure that they have the training and resources they need to do it safely for themselves, the employees, for the public, and for the environment. And lastly, we engage with new initiatives. These are collaborations across departments from, say, Parks, Recreation and Cultural Resources working with our stormwater group, for example. But there are also collaborations within the department as well, as is seen in our Community Gardens program, where our Recreation Department has taken the lead. You can see here in this picture, we have a Monarch Way Station, which is part of our pollinator program at the Sassafras All Children's Playground. And lastly, well, not lastly, but we also engage with community gardens. That's through our recreation program, and this is a build day that we did at Barwell Road. And you can see we had a good time doing that. And lastly, we engage with green stormwater infrastructure. This is a device at the Raleigh Rose Garden. These serves as a means of mitigating stormwater, but they also provide habitat for pollinators and other wildlife, and they serve as an amenity for the patrons of the park. So we find this as a very fruitful cross-departmental initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. The last slide, my favorite slide, is our volunteer project for fiscal year 24. If you look on the far right, VSP, Volunteer Service, they did 156, and District 4 did 151 alone. So altogether, grounds able to do 271 events put together across our districts, all 6 districts. Our cemetery and the horticulture program is a big accomplishment and a way that we can engage with the community and continue to network and provide what they want. That's my last slide. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Are there any questions for Mike or Neil?
Yes.
Carol?
I would like to know, and I hope the answer is no, that you do not do any mosquito control. Okay, good, thanks.
I do a little bit of mosquito control in the greenhouse using Bacillus thuringiensis,
okay.
which is
Thank you.
mosquito dunks. But we try to do only that kind of targeted biological control of mosquitoes where necessary.
Anyone else?
Yeah. So one question about fertilizer. Is that used on the greens, like the grass areas?
Yeah, we divide our maintenance into levels of maintenance from level 1 to level 6. And in levels higher than 3, so levels 1 and 2, which is about 10% of our entire managed area, we do improved grasses. Most of the lion's share of that is athletic fields maintenance, so keeping up with ball fields, and that's where we'll use fertilizers.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I have another question.
Okay, let's go to Beverly first, and then I'll come back to you, Carol.
Just wondering on this last slide, could you elaborate a little bit what District 4 means or in volunteer services program? Does that mean they came through Mary Owens' office? And then how did other people come to be volunteers? I know we have programs at Fred Fletcher and other things, and so just help me put that all together.
Yeah, so District 4 number is very high because of Fred Fletcher. They do weekly volunteer events, and Jocelyn as well. So their numbers are a little skewed. They do great work, but yes, her numbers are very high because of that reason. But so the ones that we see for the district crews, cemetery and horticulture, are led by the district crews. So it was not completely advertised by volunteer service. This is one that they either came up on their own and recruited, or the community had brought them an event that they wanted to partake in. So these are outside of volunteer service, correct?
And the only number that surprises me is Dix Park. I mean, I think I'm seeing where it is that it's so low.
Correct. So that's outside of the big Dix Park. That's more of the team that handles the actual grounds, Dix Park. So it's a separate entity.
Yeah, there's a layered approach because that doesn't represent like special events volunteers and stuff like that as well. But yeah, Mike's right.
Yes.
Carol?
That answered my question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, and what's the best way for citizens to get involved in grounds-led volunteer programs? Just the city volunteer website?
Yes, they can reach out to Mary Owens. She can put anybody in contact with myself, or
It's always in the director's report. There's always a link to volunteerism in the director's report.
And
Yes,
for the
but citizens don't always get the director's report. We get that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But it's clearly online. Once you
Yeah.
hit Volunteer Raleigh, it'll take you right to the link. Yeah.
yes, on Mary's website, there's a link to sign up and contact.
For the green stormwater work that you guys do, what kind of assessments do you do across the city? Do you target flood-prone areas and decide this is something that needs green stormwater infrastructure?
Yeah, I can't really speak to that. That's really our stormwater program that identifies where those devices need to be located. We're subject matter experts in terms of plantings and maintenance.
I can help because we do want to bring a presentation about green stormwater that's new to us, and we're actually launching a crew, which will be housed in the Parks Department. I tasked our staff with every bond project that we're doing, you have to prove why we're not going to do green stormwater infrastructure. So Shawsheen is taking it on. And the great thing is the stormwater department pays for it, so it doesn't come out of our parks bond money. So, but it also is, as you see, they're beautiful. And now we will have staff that are assigned specifically to those in parks, but also across the city. So we'll be maintaining green stormwater infrastructure on non-park property, other city property.
April?
Good evening, everyone. I had a question when you were talking about how do volunteers know, because that website's so much fun. So, do you all ever partner with Activate Good?
We do, yes. Sorry, I was
So
not in
could
my
they
head.
could
I
they
wasn't on-
find some of those volunteer opportunities on Activate Good?
I'm not sure. Anybody has the opportunity to put a link to our website on theirs. So we could certainly look and see if they are.
Okay, because I know a lot of teachers when we talk about days off, sometimes we call that a day on. And as we continue to explore how to get schools and teachers involved, Activate Good is definitely a go-to for the schools. So if you were to say, hey, we need such and such, like Barwell has community center, then the people would look on the Activate Good and come out. Because I know at Creech Road, one day there were lots of people doing grounds work. So especially if you're tied into a school where there's also a community center, there's some opportunities to have some positive Wake County Public School and Parks and Rec partnerships, maybe through Activate Good.
Thank you. And just one last question about the pollinator work that you guys do. Are there opportunities for citizens that want to grow pollinators at home and donate them to the city for you guys to sell in the efforts that you guys do?
Grow at home and then.
Yeah, one of the things that was mentioned with the pollinator gardens is that you guys sell pollinate. Oh, you don't?
No, we plant
them away.
Oh, you give them away.
Yeah,
The
we give
plant
them
sales
away.
at Mordecai are strictly
The plant
vegetables.
sales at Mordecai to benefit the historical resources. Yeah.
Okay. And with the ones that are donated, can citizens donate them to you for you to turn around and give them away, or is that?
Absolutely, sure. Yeah,
We'd have to look because we want to make sure what we're planting we have a good biocontrol over.
Yes.
Got it.
Sorry, just to add one more. Do you sell pawpaw at these plant sales? I've been looking, a pawpaw tree, I've been looking so hard to find one.
Yeah, we don't sell anything, but yes, we have pawpaw trees. Yes, we can help you with that.
Get two. You got to have two.
And the Greenways are just full of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Go
think
dig them
that's-
up, though.
I think that's all the questions. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right. Next up on the agenda, we have the situation assessment, the leaf out report that I think Emma is going to share with us.
Good evening. Where am I? All right, I'm Emma Lyles. I'm here tonight to talk about leaf out goals and guidance for trees on city property. Most of our agenda tonight is going to be covering the summary of the draft situation assessment. I'm going to be giving a high-level overview, but of course this document was attached in board docs. If you want to dive into any of those details, you have that opportunity as well. We're going over the scope, goals, and context of the project, the planning context, the schedule, community framework, community engagement, most importantly, and our next steps. So just a little refresher, anybody can't remember quite exactly how the situation assessment plugs into our process. This is really our first step whenever we do a planning project. Helps us understand exactly what's going on in the city, that helps inform this plan, helps us to kind of identify those key stakeholders up front and really put pen to paper and think hard about how we want to engage with the community. So the goals for Leaf Out, you're going to see a lot of tree analogies in this plan, so be prepared. Our goals are going to be about the roots, our protection of our trees and our sensitive habitats, the trunk, which is expansion of our urban tree canopy and habitat connectivity, and then lastly, leaves, talking about stewardship and environmental education. I want to be very clear on the scope of this project. We're going to be data-driven. We collect a lot of data, especially in GIS data, that we can use moving forward to make sure we're meeting our performance metrics. We're going to be just focusing on city-owned properties with Leaf Out. This is going to be a non-regulatory plan. I have some slides kind of later that speak to that and reflect back on the presentation you heard earlier from Matt Bailey. And then lastly, our stewardship campaign. I know it's also a goal, but just really want to kind of drive home that we're going to be wrapping up this project with something that we can give tools to our community members so that they understand the importance of Leaf Out. So this is kind of an overview of the process we're going to be taking, our 4 phases. We're going to kick off with some research. We're going to go then into vision and goals, our next steps, and then our approval process. Here's a little bit more detail on those 4 different phases. two big deliverables that I want to highlight for y'all. After our research phase, we're going to be getting together an existing conditions report that kind of talks about what we do as Raleigh Parks, what we do as the city of Raleigh, and other partner initiatives that are happening within the city that kind of speak to those three goals of protection, expansion, and stewardship. Then in the spring, we're going to go on to visioning and goals, looking at other cities and what they're doing for these goals, and kind of compare ourselves to those cities and think long-term and set some goals of where we want City of Raleigh to be in the future. Our next steps is when we're going to get our second deliverable, that 5-year action plan. We want to make sure that we're prioritizing things that we're doing in the short term to meet these goals. And we're also going to be working on an internal development guide as well. And then our approval process, targeting early 2026, we're going to be going through the Sustainability, Wildlife, and Urban Trees Committee, Parks Board, and then to City Council. Lots of planning context and forms leaf out. I'm not going to get into all of these. There's plenty of more details in the situation assessment document itself. But just, we are doing things in Raleigh that will inform this. We're doing things as a county that will inform this. And there's even, national documentation for why this work is important as well. Most importantly, though, this first bullet point, reflecting Raleigh, the next comprehensive plan, the slide might look familiar. I did not know. I was stealing Matt's slides directly, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. You guys, I think, hopefully get the gist of what our comprehensive plan is, but did want to highlight in this first phase with community engagement, those community conversations that's already started and will be going into next year, is actually going to align beautifully with Leaf Out, especially on the trees conversation they're going to be having. So Matt spoke, he said that we did the affordable housing, we're doing stormwater in just a couple of months. Trees we are targeting for March. And so I got more slides about exactly what we're doing for community engagement, but it's a huge win, absolutely kismet that these are aligning so that when we're doing our non-regulatory study, but the public wants to come and talk about development regulations, we can go, oh great, there's work being done. You can go have that conversation tonight. So going to briefly touch on community framework. There's a lot more demographic information in the situation assessment itself, but really just want to highlight that we're going to be doing a citywide initiative, so really trying to engage all of Raleigh's community members, and then also at the same time being very equity driven. So looking at those historically underserved communities, but also communities that face those environmental challenges, environmental injustice, and have the most negative outcomes to climate change and urban heat island, et cetera. So like I said, community engagement, probably the most important part of this presentation. Lots of slides. We're going to be covering all of these bullet points. Again, much more detail in the document, so I'll try to keep it brief. First up, we're talking about our level of participation. This is something that is outlined in our citywide public participation playbook, is guided by the International Association of Public Participation, and kind of helps us understand exactly how we want to engage with the community for this project. We do this for several projects. I'm sure you guys are familiar by now, so I won't spend too much time, but we are looking at the involve pathway. And so our promise to the public will be we will work with you to ensure that your concerns and aspirations are directly reflected in the alternatives developed and provide feedback on how public input influenced the decision. So I know this is a lot of information. I won't dive into all of it, but basically we've put a lot of thought into how each phase, exactly how we want to engage with the community, what questions we want to ask the community, and what tools we want to use to engage with the community. So during this research phase, we're going to be doing focus groups, intercept surveying, event tabling, an online open house and online survey. Everything that we do in person, we are going to replicate online so that we can have that broader citywide reach. And you'll see online open house and online survey in almost every single one of these phases, because that is to get to that point. During vision and goals, that's the phase where we're going to be aligning with the reflecting Raleigh engagement. So we're doing the symposia and community conversations. So that's kind of that keynote speaker coming to talk to us about trees and urban forestry. We'll be, as city staff, giving that state of the city presentation, essentially a summarization of that existing conditions report that we're going to be working on during our research phase. And then at those Ask a Planner events, and again, everything online as well. And then as we get farther along in the process, we're really going to be using our Sustainability, Wildlife, and Urban Trees Committee to help receive a lot of our public comment at that point, but definitely going to be online asking for feedback on that implementation plan. And then, of course, SWAT to Parks Board to City Council for approval, like I mentioned earlier. Our communication strategies we're going to be using, these are fairly typical that you guys probably are familiar with, our print and in person. We really love our community connector programs these days. We can get our staff on the ground talking to people in our parks about this project. And then digital outreach is going to be super important for that citywide approach as well. Community stakeholders, this is only 4 bullet points. I think there's 40 bullet points in the document itself. We're hoping to talk to a lot of different people who are doing a lot of work that relates to this project in the city. Again, in the document though, is not a comprehensive list, and we can always add more stakeholders, invite more people to the table. So I definitely recommend you all to take a look at that list. And if you guys see anybody that we're missing, please reach out and put us in touch with them, because we, more brains at the table make for a better plan. I want to touch briefly on the type of engagement also that we're going to be focusing on that's not just public engagement. We want to do a lot of internal collaboration too. This is a little diagram that we put together and put it in the document just to kind of start thinking through that thought process of how do trees appear in all of the other city-owned properties, and what departments do we need to be collaborating with when we're thinking about this project. So talking to sustainability, stormwater, housing and neighborhoods, public utilities, and a whole lot more, I'm sure. And then, of course, the SWAT committee, they want to be very, very engaged, and so this is not going to be, okay, see you at the end of the process. No, we're going to be coming every month with updates, getting feedback, getting hands-on influencing this plan. So our immediate next steps, we're going to start with that data collection and analysis, trying to, I got a meeting with our GIS guy next week. We're going to figure out everything that we have that we can use moving forward. We're going to start reaching out to our stakeholders, getting them engaged early so that we can engage them often as well, and then launching our public communication. I got the website ticket in right now, ready to hit launch is after tonight. So I think that's all the slides I got, but let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions for Emma?
Yes. I understand the Leaf Out program is not associated with any proposed regulation according to developers.
Yes.
Or to anything like that. However, I also see that, I don't know whatever page it is, that while the Leaf Out project focuses on trees located on city-owned properties, which by my calculation is approximately 10% of the land, and then there's water too, but anyway, the comprehensive plan allows citizens to engage with tree-related development organizations.
Oh, I meant, sorry, it's probably a typo, probably ordinances. I'm sorry.
With tree-related development, what?
Ordinances.
Ordinances. Okay, good. Whichever, it's all good. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carol.
Anyone else? Beverly?
Yes, at the very end, you were talking about next steps, and you were talking about data collection and analysis. Yes. What data are you looking to collect first?
Sure. I guess it's not like new data we're collecting. It's like collecting all of the data that we already have. So that urban heat island data that we collected with the NOAA partnership a couple years ago, the Wake County canopy study data. I think there's data now that we're collecting about where all the invasive species are in our parks. Just, there's a lot of data being collected, and so we just kind of want to get that comprehensive list of all the data that relates to the Leaf Out. And honestly, it's going to be the quantitative data and also qualitative data. We're going to start with those subject matter expert interviews.
Okay. And can I have a follow-up question to that? I realize that Leaf Out is focused, as Carol identified, and we all know, on city-owned property. Years ago, the city used to have a tree planting program.
Neighborwoods, right? Is that what it was
Neighborwoods, yes. That's a neighbor of mine has an oak tree that has gotten quite large, and that was planted through that program. We don't do that anymore, and so I think it's kind of interesting having grounds here and horticulture And so while the leaf out program is interesting, as you identified, it's 10% of the city. And my question and concern, the two citizens, in my view, have two concerns. One is the destruction of trees that the city cannot regulate particularly well because of limits on the imposed by the legislature. But the other part is that I think the missing piece on all of this is educating and providing opportunities for citizens to enhance trees in their own landscapes and in private property. And so my question is, how do we bring that to the table? If we've decided that leaf out is not dealing with private property, then we're sort of closing off a big area of opportunity. And I know that the backs of elected officials get all raised because, oh no, we can't tell people what to do, but we can educate people and provide more opportunities, and I don't think we're doing that.
I 100% agree. It's one of the goals is stewardship and environmental education, and specifically in the scope, it's not just the stewardship and environmental education that we're doing on city-owned properties. It's what the tools and knowledge the public then gets to take home and implement in their own backyard as well. So I think that is definitely in the City House.
So clarity is that part of the scope is as we engage community and when we engage the subject matter experts, it's to come up with these campaigns. What can you do at home? Develop a toolkit to say, if you have a tree, these are things you should consider if you're planting trees. So it's actually is a component of Emma's leaf out work.
Okay. And related to that, Ian just asked about pawpaw trees. I have a neighbor who had to take down 2 smaller disease trees, and he is dying to find a red oak tree. I mean, I think that some of these things don't need 50 meetings and pages of paper or online surveys. There are things we could be doing sooner rather than later to increase. I mean, we heard Doug Talumi. I talk about Dix Park. We've got Dix Park, its most notable feature is the size of the oaks there. But if a hurricane comes through, they're all the same age, they're all the same size. We are not doing anything to plant smaller trees nearby that can begin to grow as trees do in a forest. And so I think the project is a very good one, but I think maybe it's more complicated and more bureaucratic than some of the issues that citizens are asking about trees. So,
are you suggesting we implement a missing middle tree program?
Great idea. Something like that.
Emma, this is kind of piggybacking on Beverly's question. She was getting at the data. I know we've talked sometimes with data and programs not setting firm goals because we don't want to miss them. But could we have an eye towards that? Maybe even numerically counting the trees and having a goal at some point of increasing the number of trees by X amount?
Yeah, so I think we're going to have a whole phase where we're going to be talking about vision and goal setting with the whole community. And so, I know, especially with the benchmarking too, I think other cities have similar goals. And so we just have to figure out what is going to be right for Raleigh.
So directly answer your question, it depends on what subject matter expert you ask. Some will say, don't tell me how many, tell me the % of your tree canopy. So it's almost like who's the data expert they're going to manufacture. Do you say I should plant so many trees or should I maintain a certain % of my canopy?
Could we do both?
Yeah, and I think that's the goal. That's the goal of this is to bring together NC State and all these nonprofits to be like, what's going to work here? Because some of them are not going to agree. But what we're going to try to do is facilitate that middle ground to say what's going to work here.
And I think we have the opportunity to set long-term goals as well as short-term goals.
Recently, I was over in Dix Park going through the new play area, and I hate to say that a tree is precious, but frankly, there are many precious trees over there and vulnerable for many reasons, development, changing, time, age, whatever. And I wonder, do we need to look at protecting the trees, and I know our arborist is here, from lightning strikes? And that I've seen in the past where we had, the metal rod run up with the cable going to the ground, and that I think probably everyone knows that when lightning hits a tree, basically the sap boils and it bursts from the heat, which does a lot of damage. And sometimes you can save them, sometimes you can't. Have we looked at some, I think maybe the word is abatement, for possible lightning strikes to some of those trees? I don't know what the technology is anymore. It used to be run the rod up with the cable coming to the ground. Have we looked at that alternative on protecting some of the trees, or is it just not a factor? I knew I'd get you, sir.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll let Zach come down. I'll just put contextually. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Zach Banner, Urban Forester. So we don't have any specific lightning protection standards or process. What I would say is we could definitely look at opportunities, but it would be a scope scenario, right? So can we put a lightning rod in every big tree in every park in Raleigh? Probably not, right? So thinking about opportunities or specific trees that may warrant, that are more of a threat versus not. So I would say that there is some technology. It's no guarantee. Even if you have some lightning protection, it may not save the tree. It just sort of depends on.
Can we look at doing this and see if there's an option for doing that may be valuable in saving some of the trees?
Sure, we can definitely gather some information on lightning systems and look at costs and how they work or don't work. And if we have opportunities, I think it's something we could definitely look at.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other questions for Emma? No one? Okay, thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
All right, next we have TJ, who's going to be presenting the Raleigh Parks Plan update.
Good evening, everyone. This will be a familiar topic to many of you. Last month, prior to the board meeting, we had a nice work session where we dug into the Park System Plan update in detail. For the benefit of those of you who weren't able to join us in September, and for anybody watching at home, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the System Plan update and talk through our next steps in the approval process. So, as a reminder, this is a 10-year update. It's been a decade now since we adopted our 2014 Park System Plan that sets that long-term vision for the park system here in Raleigh, and our scope focused primarily on promoting equity in the park system, updating our level of service standards, and ultimately this is a critical path forward for us to achieve accreditation through the National Recreation Parks Association, which we'll be going after later this year. We had a robust engagement approach for this one that helped us balance both incorporating and reflecting community values, as well as a lot of internal staff engagement that assured that we come away with a plan that is actionable and relevant to the work that we do every day as staff. We took a hard look at the 2014 plan through this engagement process, confirmed that our vision is still relevant to the community. We refined some of our guiding principles to put a greater emphasis on equity, social justice, and environmental resilience, and revised our implementation plan. You received a progress report on the action items in our 2014 plan several months ago, and the update includes a revised implementation plan that is guided by the values that we heard from the community, the things that they value most in what Raleigh's park system provides. We have positioned ourselves as an agency that promotes public health, both in terms of physical and mental well-being, as well as environmental health, and a focus on what we can do as an organization to continue to promote these goals. The overall framework of the plan update and the implementation plan portion in particular is anchored around these health outcome categories, how we promote individual wellness, community cohesion, environmental resilience, and again, what we can do to continue as a strong organization committed to improving our community. The Park System Plan update also echoes this framework through a matrix of equity, factors that we can take into consideration when prioritizing new projects, whether that's capital improvement spending or programming at our facilities that, again, always keeps in mind those health outcomes so that we can be sure that we are concentrating our resources and our efforts in those neighborhoods and in those communities that are going to benefit most from the work that we do. This slide illustrates for you some of the touch points that we've had with the Parks Board throughout the process over the past year or so. Right now, we are at the final stage, nearing the finish line here, presenting this item to you for information and discussion tonight. We will be bringing it back to you next month for action, hopefully for you to recommend adoption to City Council, and that would bring us on to Council in December. In the draft that was a part of your agenda materials this month, we incorporated quite a few things that we talked about at that September workshop with you all. Revised executive summary, improvements to overall layout, and several other additions that we talked about at that workshop. For the draft that would be coming to you in November, that would be hopefully the final draft. We'd incorporate any edits based on feedback that we received from you all tonight. I will also say we have held off on doing our final copy editing and accessibility improvements to the document until we get all the substantive content finished. So the November draft you have will make all of those final copy edits. So again, one more time, this is the proposed schedule in front of you. After our discussion this evening, we hope to have the final draft report published for you and for the public online during the week of November 4th. We'd be bringing it back to you on November 21st for action, and that would set us up to be on the December 3rd agenda for City Council to formally adopt the plan. With that, I will close out and open the floor to any questions or discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, TJ. Any questions? As TJ said, we don't have to take any action tonight, or we're not going to take an action tonight. So if you guys have questions or anything like that, discussion.
Not a question, but I think the plan summary was great. Thank you for putting that together.
Appreciate that.
All right. Thanks, TJ.
Thank you all very much.
All right. So that takes us through all the presentations and to our first action item, and that's actually going to be a presentation by our nominating committee. The nominating committee is going to share a name that we were going to propose, that they're proposing that we send to City Council. So the action item will be to vote on that after it's presented. To vote to send it to City Council. So, Greg?
Good evening. Give me a moment. Pull up my notes, but we submitted those names to you, correct? Beverly submitted those to you?
Yeah, I probably have it in my email, but I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I can.
No, you're fine.
He asked me, I said I gave it to Chris.
Okay. No, you're fine. I have it. It's just. I just pulled it up too.
Yeah, we can, and if anybody at home wants to go get popcorn or a drink, you guys can.
Feel free. Okay, so we reviewed several individuals for the positions available, and we had a couple of nominations, but we're looking for one position currently.
Yeah, we were going to send a slate of names to City Council. I have those names here if you want me to read them out.
I can read them since I have them now.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, so we were going to send a slate of 3 names to City Council, and then City Council will choose from those names.
Okay, so, well, what 3 do you have? You might not have the same 3.
Yeah, you can check me and make sure this is right. The 3 names that I have are Catherine Clement, Carrie Hasbrook, and Nirvana Crew.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. So those 3 names, the nominating committee has kind of gone through their qualifications, their demographic qualities, all those things. Those are the 3 names that they came up with. So the vote here is just to approve sending those 3 names to City Council for them to select. So,
Yeah, I was going to say you might want to give further clarifications. You actually have 3 vacancies.
Right.
So do you want them to fill all three or to pick one, and then what would you do with the other two?
So I think what I was thinking, and Greg, you can correct me, but I thought we were sending these 3 for one opening, and then each month we would fill an additional opening. I know there's 3 openings right now, but that way.
And that
the
is
nominating
correct. That
committee can-
was
Yeah.
the idea.
Will the ad hoc committee continue to exist and go look at the old applications?
Yeah, including new applications that may have
applications.
come on.
And if
come
none
since
come
then. If none come in, then it would just be, I think they would just add a 3rd name to the 2 remaining names and keep adding that until they fill the spots. Is that what you guys are thinking?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think whoever wants to send this to Councilmember Patton, we'd like to write that up so that it gets clearly translated to council what the action is you want. Because it's confusing that there's 3 vacancies and you're like, only use one, we want to wait.
Yeah. And I think that would be better as well, so that we're not having 3 people fall off the board at the same time too in future.
You already have 2 Carol's coming in as a pinch hitter right now.
You're not going to keep coming if we don't fill your spot?
I'll be out in the audience.
Okay. All right. So that's the vote. Does anybody have any comments about that? Does anybody feel differently as a board? Anyone? April?
So if I'm understanding correctly, then it's not too late to also send other names forward? Is that what we're saying?
Correct.
Yeah, it's too late for tonight, but it's not
Understood.
too late for the other, yeah.
Then they have to officially go online and apply.
Right.
And fill out the,
On that favorite website? On a government?
on another favorite website.
It's a different website. So anybody watching at home that wants to join us up here, you guys can sign up and fill out an application and have that submitted for the committee to
You
consider
want to tell them what the website is?
I would if I knew it off
It's
the top of
on
my
the
head.
Parks Board. If you go to the Raleigh Parks Board where our names are listed, there's also a little blue button that says apply. And this is a change in process because typically people have been nominated for the Parks Board without having actually applied. So this is the first time that we are doing the process where you have to apply to be nominated. And that's a good step forward.
Yeah, and maybe an easier way to find it too is if you just Google Raleigh Boards and Commissions, that'll take you to a site that has all the boards and commissions, including the application. So,
How big was the pool that we used to get to the 3?
There was approximately 20 to 26 people, 20 to 24. And there were some that we later found out that submitted applications that were never reviewed because they somehow got lost in the system. And there have been a few others that have expressed interest in applying for a position on the board whose applications have not been received as of yet. Not because they haven't submitted them, perhaps they submitted them to the wrong location or wrong site, but want to give them an opportunity to at least submit their applications, have them reviewed, and see if they'll make a good member for the board and to service Raleigh.
I guess what I'm getting at is.
There was 36 applications.
If we're going to ask council to limit the selection to 1, how confident are we that subsequent appoints are going to come from a pool of equal or similar size?
Well, I think the pool of 36 is still there. They're not dismissed simply because they're not elected for this particular opening.
yeah, I think when we had our discussions about the work plan, this nominating committee was one of those things. One of the reasons that was driving the creation of the nominating committee was replacing folks on this board with considering what district people are coming from, demographics, interests, things like that, so that we're having people that are representing, you know, all the different facets of PRGAB. And so depending on who city council actually picks for this, that'll probably change who the nominated committee factors in for the next one. If it's somebody that's an avid environmentalist, not that we all aren't, then maybe the next person is somebody that cares a lot about community sports programs, things like that.
So at least when I actually did apply before I was nominated, and you do stay for a year as an active applicant after you submit your application. And I'm not on this committee, but I definitely support just the one nominee now, because for the past 5 months, I think, or 4 months, it's been saying that vacancies are on hold. So we want to give people time to like think about it again and go check.
Okay. So, any other comments, questions? Okay, do I have a motion to accept the nominating committee slate to send it to city council?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. 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 All those opposed? Okay, this passes. Thanks, guys. All right, and now it is time for our director's report.
Good evening. Let's see, talked a lot about trees. Well, we awarded a contract for $500,000 out of our capital improvement program. This is the first year we're actually using our capital dollars to invest in our trees. That'll be tree planting, tree maintenance, and it's an array of contractors from across North Carolina. So that was exciting. You officially renamed River Cane Wetland Park, and the council accepted that recommendation, so the park has a new name. The council also approved and accepted the schematic design for Biltmore Hills, which has been a project that has been in the works for a while. During their review of method, which you approved that schematic design, council member at large Stormy Fort asked that staff pause and look at adding a water feature and or splash pad of some sort into the schematic design. So we will bring back a scope, cost, and schedule impact of a possible water feature at Method. We will have an open house, so we'll engage the Method community again. We will invite the entire board to participate. So that one is on hold. We hope to bring that back in late November, if not the first meeting in December. So let's see. A couple of other things is we did a update, very brief, about 10-minute update to the city council. The city manager's office, myself, and the planning director have been working with members of the Dix Park Conservancy on a 10-year plan. Now that Gibson Play Plaza is finishing, the Creek study is finishing, and we have a pretty robust building report. The Dix leadership team recommended, can we look at what the next 10 years look like? So Kate Pierce gave a brief update on that. We have the link for all the volunteerism in the manager's report. We have a job fair coming up on October 29th called Falling in Love with Your Job. So that will be at Millbrook Exchange Park. I'm happy to announce that Walnut Creek Athletic Complex is considered by Tier 1 fast pitch softball tournaments as the best tournament location in the Southeast United States. So
That's awesome.
Really, really great. We've noticed a lot of different tournaments that we lost over the years to Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia have now come back and consider our facility better than ones that they were playing at in the Southeast. So very exciting. We have a 21 and year older adult prom coming up at the Dix Park Chapel if you'd like to attend. One of the things we listed, and I highly recommend you take a look at, is about 15 different fall events. So we have everything from Halloween to just various fall tours. So from Mordecai to Carolina Pines, Marsh Creek, Forest Ridge, all across our system, fall is festival season for us. So there's a lot of community events, and we listed quite a few for you to consider. Dix Park got a land and water conservation fund to continue the analysis and design of the Rocky Branch Creek. And we tickets for Holiday Express went on sale yesterday. We sold 33,000 tickets, but everything didn't go as planned. So we actually had a technology issue, and we had about a 3 or 4 hour delay. Basically, people that signed up, they were stuck in called queuing. You were waiting for your ticket, and we could not get our ticket vendor, so we have a company that does it for us, could not get the tickets to issue. So it took a few hours, but we did end up reconciling, and this year we increased our tickets to 33,000. So you probably saw that on the news. And then if you have been up and down Lake Wheeler Road, you probably noticed 2 large stainless steel sunflowers that have been installed. That is called Creative Infrastructure, that I think Mr. Johnson helped inspire, but they were designed by Thomas Sayre, and they are now complete, and they were fully funded by the Dix Park Conservancy. You have a link to all the zoning cases. that are currently in front of the council. And then finally, last week, myself and about 18 of our staff went to our national conference in Atlanta, and I'm proud to say that 6 of our staff were asked to represent amongst 8,000 people from all across the United States. So really good showing for Raleigh Parks. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Any questions for our director? Ian?
Yeah, I also saw the news about the Holiday Express tickets. I was wondering, have the parks ever done a lottery to cater to the people that can't be at their laptop in the morning on the weekday?
We have not.
Would that be something that we could at least set aside some tickets for future years?
We could look into it, but I don't know how a lottery would work.
Okay. An example, so parking at UNC is nightmarish. You have to get into a lottery.
Sure.
That lasts for about 3 weeks, and then they just pick however many parking spots are available and email you so you can buy your tickets now. Less pressure, but at least that might allow for some people that can't do it during the buying, because that was impressive. I mean, it's a wonderful event to see the demand that drives people to buy 32,000 tickets in 4 hours.
10 minutes before we launched, we had 10,000 people waiting to buy tickets. So we see the ticker keep on going. But absolutely, we could look at that. I think it's great because we do get feedback to say, I'm a working parent, and I've been online, I had to delay, so taking that feedback, and maybe it's we do something in the evening or something like that, so we can certainly take that feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just a reminder to board members, I think Giovanni has sent us the email about Holiday Express tickets, so
Correct.
you guys know the demand out there. You may want to email her to get yours.
So I had a question, back on what you said too about access. Are there organizations? Are there any set aside for organizations? Okay,
Yeah.
so do
Quite
people
robust
know that?
amount.
Okay,
Yes.
so I
Yes.
guess, is there a list of those organizations, or how do you all decide how that works?
So we have a financial assistance coordinator who works with
Okay.
everything from the Raleigh Housing Authority to different women's organizations. So we focus on the most vulnerable at youth or families to distribute tickets to them.
So I'm going to continue to do my plug. So for Wake County, there's also a huge group of international teachers here. And so we took them to the Chinese Lantern Festival. So just trying to find some of those types of things to include them also might be nice, because for them, that's like a whole nother experience, because they're here teaching in the Wake County Public Schools, and some of them bring their families.
Thank you.
So since we're plugging groups to include, let's include the veterans. You know, you got United States veterans.
Absolutely. I'll just manage expectations. It is a limited ticket pool, and it could very much quickly spot, but note taken, for sure.
Well, and even, is it okay? And even to some of the other events, like you're talking about the Fall Festival, just trying to continue to find some ways to continue to promote that, where it's not just looking on the website, because I think that's going to be really helpful to some of the people that you're trying to reach. That website is not the place that a lot of people go to look for the information.
Yeah, and be clear, it is not our primary means of communication, isn't the website. We do, not all of our events, use our cultural outreach center that's in Peach Road to help spread the word, as well as our community centers themselves. At their core, they know their communities, understand what needs to be multilingual, make sure print products out there, and faith-based organizations that receive the information as well.
Any other questions for Stephen? No? Okay, thank you, Stephen. All right, next is our committee reports. I'll kick off with the Parks Committee. We had the Neuse River Master Plan presented to the committee, and as part of that master plan, there was actually a ranking by the CAG for Neuse River of the features of that park. And if you guys recall, there was a whole set of features, and if everything that was on the list was potentially going to make it into one phase of construction, then there was not going to necessarily be a need to prioritize certain features over other features, because everything would get built. Unfortunately, there's not necessarily funding for one phase, there's probably going to be multiple phases of construction. So the prioritization of those features is more important than it would have been. The CAG voted on what they thought should have been the highest and lowest priority items, and the Parks Committee felt that that list didn't completely match what was reflected in some of the polls that were done to the public. We obviously had thousands of people that were polled on what they wanted to see as part of that park. The CAG came back with a slightly different order of priorities. So the Parks Committee is actually going to come up with their own list as well. That's not eliminating the CAG list. That's also still going to be put in the master plan. But if you guys are wanting to weigh in on that, you can attend the next Parks Committee. So I'll also put a plug in for the Parks Committee meetings in 2 weeks. But nothing has to happen tonight, where the Parks Committee is going to vote on that, and then they will bring that list of priorities to the board next month. All right. Any questions for me? Okay. Fred Fletcher, Volunteer Committee.
Okay, sorry. Nothing really new, but I do remember the request, I believe you made it, Chris, about the consideration of awarding the people awards who were picked for during COVID, right? So Mary and I probably have to have an in-person conversation about that. And I know she has a new boss, so we'll just kind of hash that out, and maybe if you have any suggestions, but I'll talk to her to see if that part's possible, and then bring back everybody having some opportunities to weigh in on that. I went to the Medal of Arts Awards the other night, so I was like taking notes. So I have some ideas and some things that I thought that they did really well, considering how many people they awarded, to see if we can look into doing some things a little differently.
That's awesome. Thank you. Greenway Committee.
We met on Monday. We had three things really to talk about. We had guests. Again, this is the second meeting in a row, and they were here at our last meeting, the people on the Big Branch connector. We have not seen the schematic design yet. It's going to come to us in December, but I would imagine that we're going to see them again. They've got real strong feelings about that. We got a first view of the Walnut Creek Greenway design that's included in the bond. We had similar discussions, it sounds like you had, on Neuse River. We gave some feedback on some of the things that we saw, and we will see the schematic design for that in our next meeting, and then it will come here in November. And we had presentations from the maintenance department, who do mow grass.
Among other things.
Any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Sustainability, wildlife, and urban trees. Ian?
Yeah, so I'll present for Kate. So we had a nice presentation from Zach. They've all left. On urban forestry, but what they do for managing city-controlled properties and streets and greenways. And then Emma went over the leaf-out situation assessment. You got a nice presentation on that tonight. One thing that I thought I wanted to point out was that there was a lot of guests from local conservation organizations. There's a lot of passion in the city about this project, and I think we might need a bigger room in future meetings. We had every chair filled. I was glad to see all the enthusiasm and ideas coming from this board, so I would recommend that more people come to these meetings, because with the level of involvement that's going to be on the SWAT meetings will be the primary means for getting your opinions across and getting your ideas into the plan. First Wednesday of every month, and I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Ian. Any questions for Ian? Nope. Okay. We'll do liaison reports. Arts Commission, the Medal of Arts happened, as April mentioned. I wasn't able to go there, but I heard it went really well. And so I recommend people check it out in the future. But that's all I had for that. BPAC?
Oh, BPAC meets next week. So I think on Monday. And so I think the prior meeting was reported on. So the meeting is upcoming. So no report on that. Cool. But I will not be in attendance. So I assume
so Bob, you'll run it up. Okay. Historic Cemeteries Advisory Board? No report. Okay, thank you, Mr. Craig. Dick's Leadership Committee?
Got my notes on that. So we got a report on the visitor experience report, a very extensive presentation on Lake Wheeler Road project update, and the conversation about the Gibson Play Plaza parking, wayfinding, and signage. There was a lot of conversation about Lake Wheeler Road, and we saw that and probably approved it a year or so ago. It does involve 3 roundabouts, and as was pointed out by myself and several others, the problem with a roundabout on a road where the Greenway crosses it is that a roundabout slows traffic, but it does not stop traffic. And so having personally almost been hit by a car that was coming up Lake Wheeler heading south, and there's no reason to stop if you're turning right going south of Lake Wheeler because there's no traffic coming in any other direction. But if you have a red light and the Greenway you have the little white man there, you think you can go, and cars are going. So I am concerned about the lack of traffic signals with Greenways, but it's pretty far under development. It also was raised was the issue of there are several trees that are adjacent to the Gibson Play Plaza that, speaking of trees, and they are very big oaks that are scheduled to come down. And I had to leave, but I don't know the final conversation on whether they're going to be able to design around those trees or not. So,
is there room for a comment on that report?
Absolutely, you were there.
When the plan was adopted for Lake Wheeler Road, there was some concern about whether the traffic there would overburden the road in the park, and the balance was apparently reached that these roundabouts would still allow for through traffic, but minimizing the negative possible impacts on the park. And a lot of different things were presented to address that. From what I understand, though, they're at the point of contract. They've done the design, engineering, and contract, so that's going to happen. And there are still maybe some ways to tinker with it, and I think that would be worth doing because I spent a lot of time talking about the traffic on Lake Wheeler Road and was not a big supporter of the approach they took, but realized that it was much better than what came in the door to begin with, which was as many as 4 lanes, 2 in each direction. So a great deal somewhere along the line was achieved, but I would agree that some tinkering might be in order to make it a place that can, if necessary, be transformed temporarily to be more a part of the park. I don't know exactly what it might include, but some of the things I mentioned earlier were some space for food trucks if they wanted to have a big event in the closed off part of the street, and some attention to Dal Adams and Fuller so the traffic could be diverted that had to go through there along, I think it's called Cushman, or somebody help me on this, a street that parallels Lake Wheeler Road. So there's still plenty of opportunities, but I think we have to be realistic that getting that job done and what they were talking about at the meeting, having opening day at Dix Park while construction's going on, the Dix Park Leadership Committee is doing a lot to parcel out the opening day. They'll have an opening day and then opening day, a sequel, and then maybe whatever else they're going to have. So lots of stuff's going on, but I wouldn't be discouraged if we can figure out a way to find out what is going on in that conflict, the friction that's going on there, to ameliorate it in ways that won't hold up the completion of the street.
Yes, there was a request by members of the leadership committee that construction not begin in February or March because it's anticipated that the Play Plaza will open in April, and therefore it would be pretty insane to have the traffic flow with all of these opening dates and have the road just have gone under construction. So I believe that the city manager's office heard the request. That the prior request had been get it done as fast as you can, but when the two things converged, that getting it done as fast as you can meant happening at the exact same time that the park was opening. That's a recipe for disaster. So that was discussed.
And I don't want to belabor it, but three things. There was a little storm in western North Carolina, and road contractors are going to be very scarce. So maybe the delay will work to our advantage.
I can help. I missed the meeting. I was out of town. The tree issue is a big issue, and the core of it is not the design of the road, is the ability for our partners in Duke to allow anything underneath the power lines, which shifts the trail further into the park. Currently, the way it's designed, it should not, but we're still negotiating with, knock on wood, Duke, to say you have linear projects like our Greenways. Some of them go down power lines, so we're still trying to hold true to that.
That's great
design.
news.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
The issue of the opening of the Play Plaza and the Lake Wheeler Road, I think the word phasing came up a number of times. It's going to require, in my opinion, some magic to make sure that corridors are open and closed and that we don't end up with a stalemate. Since we don't really know exactly how many thousands of people could show up on this, and trying to work all this is going to have to, maybe he's right, the storm could be our friend when it comes to it, but opening the Play Plaza on a day Lake Wheeler Road is closed could be a challenge.
Any other questions or comments for Beverly? For Dix? No? Okay. Historic Resources and Museum Advisory Board, Jeff?
No report.
Okay. And, all right. Parks Bond Community Engagement Liaison Reports. Jeff, you already gave one on Walnut Creek. You don't have to go again unless you want to. Anybody else? Anybody have a liaison report?
I'll just say, as a member of the Neuse River CAG, that I'm thrilled that the Parks Committee is looking at the priorities, because what happens in these CAGs is it's a lengthy process, it's a time-consuming process, and the membership declines over that period of time. And so when the vote was actually taken on priorities, it was only 8 people from the CAG. So it was a very limited. So it's not, so I think it's very important. This board, as we've talked about before, represents a broader viewpoint than just one part of the city. And so that's why it's important for the committee to see that.
Okay. Anybody else? All right.
Wait, April.
Oh, April, sorry.
I'm still good at raising my hands. Okay, so when you talked about the CA, I was waiting for that to come up. We have talked about this before, but based on what you just said, I think that supports the fact that we need to have some sort of action around the information that is required to serve on one of these committees. What is the expectation? And dare I simplify it, like a day in the life. If you are going to serve on these are some of the things that are going to happen, because people want to be involved, you know, they want to put on their resume or whatever that is, but you really don't know what you're signing up for. And so then you don't end up maybe in a situation like that. So if we could really do some honest conversation and some action behind how do we let people know what exactly you're doing, and when you apply, you don't get stuck in the loop and you can't tell what's happening. Same way with the nominations. So I think those are two things in order to serve on these very important committees, to really know what you're doing and know that your application didn't go on a hold. I think that we really should put some action around those items.
Yeah,
To add to that, maybe we could do exit interviews. Carol, you can be our first. Just to really capture, like, what is it? You know, how much time did you spend? What was the busiest week you had? What was the least week? You know.
Are you saying from the board? Exit interview?
Both the board and the CAGs.
The board does, boards and commissions are not required, but it is given to them to do an exit interview once they leave the board. Nice. And that comes from community engagement. They get those emails.
I like your suggestion, though, like a post-evaluation. What could have played out better? Was it more time than what you expected? Was it too technical? Was the meeting location? So it's great feedback.
So you
Yeah.
want to catch them so you know what you're signing up for, so you can finish. But even more, oh, I'm so sorry. So we want people to know what they're signing up for and understand that committee work is they're works of art. So most people understand that. But the idea of, I believe we talked about the application that it started asking a lot of very personal questions. And it's like, well, yeah, because you might be on TV, and yeah, because you're going to be out in the city. And I don't think people understand that. So I think we really need to start with, it's not like a PTA. It's a little bit more elevated, but people don't really understand that. And because we have so many people moving in from other places, the way it's done somewhere else may be very different. So I think it'd be really great if you really want to get the best fit when the seats are open to figure out some quick ways to get that taken care of.
Yeah, and I think that in this upcoming year, we can also, as a board, kind of spend a little bit more time kind of revisiting some of the CAGs and refreshing them to some degree. One of the things that I heard about the Neuse River CAG was that they actually had, and if you guys recall, it came to the board, but the Parks Committee kind of screened a bunch of applications for the CAGs, and we were the ones that recommended who would actually be the members of the CAGs. And it was brought to my attention just last month that the Neuse River CAG lost one of their members, and then the CAG itself voted not to replace that person, which I don't think is the CAG's decision to make. Typically, the Parks Board or the Parks Committee should replace that person. Is that accurate, Stephen? Or
I do not recall the CAG voting not to replace, but I could ask staff about that. I do know that in the very beginning, we lost a member right away.
Yeah, and it wasn't that one. It was something that happened later. I think somebody moved away, and the CAG decided to call the election there. This is just what was told to me, so I'm getting it secondhand. It's hearsay.
I would defer to your fellow board members who sit on the
And I don't
CAG.
recall the detail. I wasn't the one who reported that, so.
Yeah, it was not
But I
Beverly.
think that's the role of the board members to say, I observe this.
Yep.
I need to bring this back to the board. You don't have the authority. Yep.
Yeah, and I just say that not to pick on Beverly for not being there, but because we can't be at every meeting all the time, and every so often we're not going to notice things that happen, and so checking in with the committee, checking in with CAG members from time to time could be helpful to make sure that they're kind of remembering their mission.
And shouldn't that be in their notes?
I would think so.
Okay.
Okay. So that brings me to the chair report. I'll keep it brief. Oh.
Staff, let me know that you didn't vote on the leaf out situation assessment. We just wrapped it up and went to the next agenda item.
Oh, did we need to vote on that?
It would be
Is a
good.
vote-
Yeah,
What's the vote on?
What's that?
What would we be voting on?
The situation assessment that's in the board packet.
Okay, just to approve it. Okay. Everybody had a chance to look at that. Is there a motion to approve the situation assessment?
I will comment that it was very thoroughly reviewed, and they incorporated pretty much all of our changes, so I have motion to approve.
Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor? Aye. All right, anybody opposed? No? Okay, that passed. Thank you. Okay, chair report. I don't have much to say, just thank you for electing me chair. I appreciate the faith that you guys have in me. I've mentioned to you guys a few things that I want to see in the upcoming year, but we've also talked about committees and refreshing membership. Please shoot me an email, shoot me a text, grab me after the meeting if you guys have any particular visions for the board, committees that you want to serve on, committees that you might want to chair, liaison roles that you might want to fill. All that stuff is up in the air, and it's available to be changed. It's available to be shared. I want to make sure everybody on the board feels like you're bought into what we're doing, and start thinking about what we want to put on the work plan for next year, because that'll come sooner than you think. So thanks, everyone.
May I say that I want to express my gratitude to everybody on the board. You've been wonderful. This is my last meeting, so I'll be in the audience. That's right. Jeff reminds me, I said I would be in the audience, so.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, we expect to see you at a lot more meetings to come. All right. Does anybody else have any other comments, questions? If not, we can adjourn.
As a reminder, you did mention Holiday Express. Please give me that information as soon as possible. I will be sending out another email or reminder. And also, the Holiday Social information will be coming out about that, an invitation for you all to RSVP. So look for that within the next week or so for that. And that will be December 12th at 6.
And I think what we decided is that there's not actually going to be a business meeting that day, so you guys can just come with your party hats on to hang out. And is that going to be at Dick's Chapel again? Okay. Yeah. Beverly?
And I just want to say that I was, two things. I saw a teacher, I was on the Walnut Creek Greenway riding, and there was a teacher from the Vernon Malone School with his students, and they were identifying invasive species. And one student asked about a particular tree, and it was a pawpaw tree. And so they are along the Greenway. So that was really exciting to see the students engaged in hunting for things and knowing that one of our colleagues is a teacher there. The other thing, I was on Sunday, I was at Poland Park, and actually my granddaughter wanted to go back on Monday, but it was it was just packed. It was in a good way. It was not overly crowded, but just the diversity of children and parents and ages and in every way engaged on the playground, on the train, on the carousel. It was just heartwarming. And I was there with a friend from out of town, and they were like, wow, you all are so lucky to have a park like this. And so we take it for granted, but those of us on this board don't, because we know how special it is. So thank you. And it was fully staffed and everything was open.
All right, if there's nothing else, meeting adjourned.